This is going to keep getting crazier. Juan Soto is the story of the Major League Baseball offseason. Now it's a race between the New York Mets, the New York Yankees, and yes, the Toronto Blue Jays. They're doing it again, similar to what they did last year with the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, but feels a little bit different this time around. So we'll break it down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. Welcome in, everybody, to Jays Digest. I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And if you're enjoying all of this Juan Soto coverage, because buckle up, it's going to be a while before this sucker wraps up. At least that's my prediction if I were to give you one at this point of the offseason. But before we get into all of the mess, all of the noise, I want to let you know that only 63% of you who are watching these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So go ahead and hit that sub button. The support that we've gotten on recent videos has been truly incredible. Nick and I are blown away. And Nick, we're close to our goal of 15,000 subscribers, and I think we could get that by the end of this Juan Soto saga that we got playing out here. But Nick, I wanted to get to this because it feels a little bit different this time around. Last year, it was the Dodgers against the Blue Jays for Shohei Ohtani, and when you go toe to toe with LA, it's always going to be an uphill battle. Now it's the two New York teams, and the Blue Jays are sort of in the background, doing their business a little bit quieter and a little bit earlier than they did last year with the Ohtani stuff. Maybe it's better that way. Maybe it's worse that way. I truly don't know what to make of the entire situation right now, but it's exciting. And all these reports that are coming out saying that the Blue Jays are the dark horse to look out for, despite a ton of other teams being in on Soto, I think that's a very positive trend that's going on. And I'm excited to see how this thing plays out.
Yeah, reports are heating up. Juan Soto met with the Boston Red Sox yesterday. Some things are going down on that front. So, like you mentioned, it probably won't be resolved quite yet. But let's start with this. And there's a few different reports here. Take some of them with a grain of salt. Take some of them, obviously, for what we know from Jeff Passan. But we're going to get into some interesting reports here. So, this one dropped yesterday. It was from Jeff Blair on the Fan Morning Show. He said, I do know from talking to Jeff Passan that ownership is involved in this. This isn't just Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins trying to sell Juan Soto on Toronto. And obviously, we know Shai Davidi came out and basically said they have an alternate budget for Juan Soto that is going to exceed their budget for every other free agent, which makes sense. So ownership is getting involved, similar to what they did and like they were for Shohei Ohtani. So, I mean, this isn't much of a surprise. Obviously, when you're spending $600-700 million on a player, ownership is going to get involved. So we'll get into that in a second. But Peter, there's a lot of Hector Gomez reports are back. Now, whether or not you want to believe Hector Gomez is up in the air, he's gotten a lot of things right in the past. He's gotten some things wrong. So I'll leave it up to you guys to kind of take what you want from it. But we're just going to break down the reports here. So it's a Blue Jays front office executive said the Jays are a lot more in on Juan Soto than most believe, and that people would be shocked when they find out how much the Jays want Soto. And this has kind of been the tune lately for the Toronto Blue Jays, and reports that are coming out is that they're really going all in. Passan kind of backed not Hector Gomez's report up here, but in his own individual reporting, basically saying very similar things. The Jays are trying to spend big and that they're going to be huge players. I have another very interesting report, which we'll get to in a minute, but what are your thoughts on these couple things from Jeff Blair and Hector Gomez? We're at that point of the offseason where we're
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah, well, Jeff Passan has come out and said that the Blue Jays are in on him as well.
Yep.
So that's a good thing that we could take out of this. And Hector Gomez also said that the Blue Jays signed Freddie Freeman a
Yep.
few years ago. So you do have to take these things with a grain of salt. And unlike you, Nick, I'm going to proceed with a little bit more caution as this thing rolls along here. But yes, definitely an interesting report, and that is a Blue Jays executive saying that. So. How badly do you want him is the question that we have to ask ourselves here. Yeah, you'd be surprised at how badly the Blue Jays want Soto, but do they want him more than Steve Cohen, who's ready to spend to no end to go ahead and get this guy? Like I said, the Steve Cohen story the other day about how he upped his bid by $14 million just to buy a house that another friend of his wanted. Like that's the kind of shrewd businessman that he is. That's the little amount of care that he has for money. He money is an object to Steve Cohen, and it can be viewed as that to Rogers as well. I'm not saying that they don't have deep pockets, but Steve Cohen is one individual. Rogers is a set of people that are making decisions that are working towards a collective goal that they have in mind. So maybe a little bit harder to sway an entire an entire group of people as opposed to just one guy. Steve Cohen wants Juan Soto, and he wants him badly. So if you want any chance in these sweepstakes, you have to outbid him. You have to go toe to toe with Steve Cohen, and that's a risky proposition for Rogers and for any other team that wants to get Soto. I think it's realistic. I think that the fact that Vladdy is there and you got Jose Bautista and Edwin Encarnacion around the team at times as well. That is an encouraging thing. Like that Dominican Brotherhood runs deep in Major League Baseball. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but you're going to have to go to insane lengths to go ahead and outbid Steve Cohen because it's not a very easy thing to do, especially the way that he thinks about the Mets. They're like his fantasy team. He'll spend to no end, and he'll allocate so much time and so many resources to the New York Mets that it's hard to compete with that, straight up.
Yeah, and speaking of obviously the money factor, this came out a couple hours ago, and again, take all of these things with a grain of salt. It's just there's interesting rumors going around, and they're fun to talk about at this point. So, you can see here. So apparently, there was a guy named Alfred Alvarez who spoke to a friend within the Toronto Blue Jays organization. The Jays at this point are willing to write Juan Soto a blank check, and then Ben Turner, shout out to him. He does a lot of kind of news. Keeps up to date with news. Since Spanish, and apparently in one of these, podcasts, he said that he mentioned a source that works for the Jays who he met back in spring training, became good friends, and have remained in contact. I texted him about the rumors. He responded, "Brother, they're ready to hand him a blank check." Now, again, take it with a grain of salt. But again, a lot of these, I guess, reports, or I'm going to go with rumors. A lot of these rumors that are going around, we'll find out whether or not they're true. This is a separate one, different than the Hector Gomez one, but take it less as a fact and take it more so as if they are willing to write a blank check, it becomes a lot more interesting for the Toronto Blue Jays about what they can do with Juan Soto. And again, it's ultimately going to come down to whether he chooses the Red Sox, the Blue Jays, the Yankees. Again, I don't think the Red Sox are a huge factor. We know that they met him yesterday in a quote productive 3-hour SoCal meeting, but they didn't actually make an offer to Juan Soto. But Peter, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this. It's going around Blue Jays Twitter and Blue Jays, the Blue Jays universe a little bit. It is interesting because with players like this, the reporters, you tend to get some more insight from reporters closer to the families of whether it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Juan Soto, players like that, as opposed to some of the more marquee free agents, around like Jeff Passan, obviously. So it's a little bit interesting here. I don't know if I believe it necessarily, but it would make some sense. They're ready to hand him a blank check. And again, I don't know who this reporter is, but if he has legitimacy or not, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is risky because sure you can hand the guy a blank check and he'll have his number in mind, but if Steve Cohen is staying true to his word, then he'll just write him a bigger check and then it'll just be a back and forth battle. It's truly about who is going to last the longest in this race. How badly do you want this guy? And I personally don't think he's worth Shohei money because if you take a look at the off the field stuff, Shohei generated almost $150 million in his first season for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I don't think Juan Soto has that same kind of reach, and it's no disrespect to the player. I think they're comparable when you just look at offensive metrics. But Shohei's on the mound. He's the most popular player in Major League Baseball, and he has half of a country waking up at 8 a.m. to watch a playoff baseball game that isn't even in the World Series. So that's the kind of global reach that Ohtani has that Soto cannot offer to the Toronto Blue Jays. So maybe they'll have their top dollar that they're willing to pay and they won't go above that. And I'm sure it's a pretty hefty price tag. But I find it hard to believe that let's say they hand him a blank check and it's for $650 million and he's ready to sign that and then Steve Cohen goes up to 700. I don't know if the Blue Jays are going to be willing to outbid that 700 and they might come second again. They just might not be willing to go to the lengths that the Mets are willing to go to. And that's my only worry in this process. But the good thing about this, and we've touched on it multiple times, Nick, is that they've started the process early. They've clearly shown their hand early here in free agency, and they're not going to wait until the last minute. They're going to wait for Soto to sign, of course, but I'm sure they're going to make other subsequent moves either to sway him to come to Toronto or just to have a backup plan executed, because you cannot go into next season with the same roster and a couple of minor additions, because then you're just setting yourself up for failure, and you're setting yourself up for Vladdy and Bo to walk for nothing at the end of the season after another terrible regular season. So you have to make some choices here. You can wait for him to sign, of course, before you make some patchwork moves and truly complete your roster, but the bulk of your deals have to be made here before he signs, because I think he's going to drag this process out as long as he can.
Yeah, now whether that's before the winter meetings or after is yet to be seen, but a lot of things ride on this for the Toronto Blue Jays and their future. So we're going to keep you up to date with all the latest news. Let us know down below, which of these rumors do you think, do you believe them for one? And if so, do you think Juan Soto is going to end up a Toronto Blue Jay? Let us know. We'll see you guys later.